Hey, be joyful. We're going to pick up in verse 17 now. We're moving on out of 16. We're going to see today a cool thing where God describes a little bit about his relationship with us, in particularly calling himself our Father. And that's how Peter describes him here. And we've talked about that a little bit already, but I want to come back to it. It's as Peter repeats it, we want to repeat it and just really try to understand more and more what the fatherhood of God looks like in our lives. So here it is. This is verse 17 of 1 Peter 1. And if you call on him as Father, who judges impartially according to each one's deeds, then conduct yourselves with fear throughout your time of exile. All right, we need to break this up, but like I said, we're going to focus on the Father aspect of this. We see in the book of Galatians where Paul kind of touches on some of the same themes to describe this fatherhood relationship we have, and it also brings out some of the context of holiness that Peter's been talking about. So let me read to you one more passage. This is Galatians 4, Galatians chapter 4, starting in verse 3. In the same way, we also, when we were children, were enslaved to the elementary principles of the world. But when the fullness of time had come, God sent forth his Son, born of a woman, born under the law, to redeem those who are under the law, so that we might receive adoption as sons. And because you are sons, God has sent the Spirit of his Son into our hearts, crying, Abba, Father. So just like in 1 Peter, when he's speaking of holiness, he says that we existed in these passions of our former ignorance. And Paul brings that up too. He speaks of being enslaved to elementary principles of the world. But God, as a good Father, is drawing us towards maturity, which means holiness, which means more Christ-likeness. And that's exciting. We're in a process. We're in a state of movement in maturity in him. But it's directly related to his fatherhood. And that's exciting. I wonder if in a journal you could put down some notes about, what it is that you feel when you consider God as your Father, when you really think about what that means. And maybe also, from a more global perspective of humanity, what does it mean that we have a good Father in God? That he isn't capricious and prone to lash out, but instead is a good, gracious, and loving Father. So think about those things, and we'll get back soon. All right. Bye-bye.